Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the director of the new museum, Lisa Phillips.
The conference organizers, Rosalie Ginevro, Richard Flood, Rogan Kirsch, and Tony Vidler, all agree that a festival of ideas which focused on the new city and considered urban change had to feature Rem Koolhaas, one of the world's most brilliant and fascinating architects and urban thinkers. So we're really honored to have him here tonight. And now Tony Vidler, Dean of the School of Architecture at Cooper Union, will introduce Rem Koolhaas.
There's no one more appropriate to introduce this festival of 1,000 ideas than Rem, who has never worked alone. First with the original AMA collective through its different iterations to AMA, and then to the hosts of students who formed the research equipes for gathering and hunting, and back to the intensity of the teams working in the office in Rotterdam. The collectivity of Rem's ideas on architecture in the city, together with the collective that is Rem, is then the very image of our nascent festival. I would like you to welcome my old friend and erstwhile colleague in architectural invention, Rem Koolhaas.
Thank you very much, both. It makes me a bit shy. I want to give a lecture which is called Cronocaos, or preservation. But in fact, I would like to call it the apotheosis of heritage. And what I want to do is to present some preliminary ideas in terms of the consequences of our current belief in heritage as a almost driving force of our society. And maybe what I say now seems enigmatic, but I hope that during the course of the lecture it becomes clear. Now, architects are almost insanely addressing the future. I think the profession as a whole simply has no rear view mirror, and progress is the only direction that we know, even though we are at this point wise enough to know that real progress is not really possible. Everything we do is highly artificial, and in that sense I would like to make a private comment that I'm very often deeply uncomfortable with this artificiality, and that also for me the most compelling cases of heritage is involuntary heritage, such as in this case on the screen, what happened to Pompeii. For me it was very interesting to participate in the last Biennale, looking deliberately and taking this tradition of looking at the past seriously and trying to do it again. The main thesis of the exhibition and also of this lecture is that our current obsession with the past is so intense that time is no longer functioning as a kind of chronological phenomenon, and that we are basically in a kind of situation of warp where to some extent heritage is our future, or we are confused whether heritage is something behind us or in front of us. Our commitment to heritage is jeopardizing our sense of linear history. My lecture will also be didactic and very deliberate. The first part is talking about the phenomenon of preservation at the scale it is currently taking place. The second part is about the side effects of preservation taking place. And the third part is about a vast exception within our current almost idolatry of heritage. That is our commitment to try to destroy every architecture between 1970 and 1990 that was part and that embodied the ambition to improve life and that contained a political and social program. What we also inevitably see is that the reasons and the arguments for introducing heritage, which were first quite precise and are becoming kind of more and more blurred, and also acquiring more and more the language of the social. So basically current and past social expressions. I mean, it used to be ancient monuments, and now we have evolved to this, which is partly under the category intangible heritage, which kind of projects on the world beyond everything that is physically kept, also everything that has to be kind of maintained of culture. This is the red is the current amount of world heritage distributed over a number of over all the continents, and you see that Europe dominates, and that kind of certain continents have relatively little heritage. But this is the reservoir of future heritage, and this injustice will be corrected in the future. In the future, every continent has the same amount of heritage. So heritage is from an entity that is kind of decided in terms of its merits, becoming more and more a right, a human right almost, and therefore it changes completely in its category. What we are facing, I think, and it's a kind of both exciting but very complex to get our head around it, is a world in which we are at the same time involved in radical transformation, but at the same time also involved in radical stasis. Yeah? So we have to change completely, but also stay absolutely the same. This is a kind of wrenching phenomenon that we need to think about and haven't thought about before. We have almost reached the kind of bizarre point where heritage, initially was a hedge against development, and now we will very soon enter the situation when heritage is development. There's only one complete counter movement to this heritage, and that is the architecture of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The architecture that had the audacity to imagine that architecture could have a social function or a social effect. And the whole world is united almost touchingly in the ambition to get rid of this evidence as quickly as possible. And it's being very successful worldwide. And that is as true of China now as it is of Europe, as it is of America. And it is kind of really unbelievably interesting to see how the entire culture, with all its media, with all its politics, which only in the 60s kind of promoted a particular kind of architecture, with a kind of very strong consensus about kind of the reasons, the arguments, and the why of this, is now equally united to destroy that architecture. So very much once kind of propaganda for architecture, now propaganda against architecture, and where this kind of language, it has simply turned 180 degrees, and now its opposite is being kind of advocated in every single country, and also kind of really implemented in every single country. The point here is that it's a serious point that we have been so uncritically accommodating the enormous quantity, the continuously rising scale of heritage, and having given it a place in our lives, that our lives are changing, and that the kind of art we accommodate there is also changing. One proposal that we are launched is, let's not look at masterpieces only, but let's be kind of more scientific and simply make a point grid of heritage, where we simply cover the city in small areas that are preserved, so that whatever its size eventually will be, there will be always remnants of the past that will enable you to kind of really judge or investigate what happened. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the lecture. Tomorrow there's a show opening at the Bowery. You recognize the Bowery, and you know that it's, in terms of heritage or preservation, a kind of very significant moment, because after the arrival of the new museum, other galleries came, and this relentless process of improvement is also taking place there. And it was actually interesting to. It's therefore a kind of very significant moment here. Is it going to be all museums, or is it going to be all perfect, or is New York, or can you imagine a system tolerant enough to also adopt ugliness or randomness or otherness in this relentlessly kind of homogenized landscape? So we were privileged that Lisa Phillips asked us to be the first show in a new space for the new museum, which is kind of bought in the space next door. Here's Lisa coming out of it. This will be the next new museum, an extension of the museum. But we were just in time to stop the kind of process of improvement in its tracks. This is what we found, an unimaginable but somewhat beautiful chaos. Disgusting but interesting kind of floors, nauseating pile-ups of nothingness. And so basically what we proposed is that there could be no better environment for the Cronocaos exhibition than exactly this space at this moment. And what we kind of proposed that we half of it would be renovated according to the new museum's intentions, but that the other half would stay the same, so that we have a kind of schizophrenic space where these two conditions coexist. So again, we have the kind of situation, the side effects, the black hole, but here we maintain the authenticity, and there the renovated new space is a fact. So here look at the new space, typical museum, and then the schizophrenic division line, the old thing where still we were lucky enough to have all the diplomas of the others hang, and this will kind of open tomorrow. Thank you very much.